shining the light on. How are you today, Therese?
Oh man, these ascension symptoms. Let me try again. Between Mercury retrograde and the ascension symptoms coming in, it's kicking my butt.
I hear you completely. And I am just going to add one thing to our live that I forgot because, of course, retrograde is so fun. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I agree. It's absolutely been an adventure. I feel like the ascension symptoms are crazy right now. My technology has been an adventure today, right? So extra patience, patience, compassion for the body.
Yes.
But this is why we're here.
Water, lots of water.
Exactly. Minerals, electrolytes.
Yes.
Stuff that's so important.
But I was just saying to Amber before we started recording that, even though it's rough and it is a rough period, there's like rough energy to ride out because it's helping to alleviate some of the lower frequencies that get trapped in our body or trapped in our psyche. So it's helping to alleviate that. So even though it hurts and it's rough, it's ultimately for our good. And that we're just kind of in this period of time where it's kind of about endurance right now, because she was asking me like, when does this let up? And I said, I don't think it lets up. I think we actually stabilize with this energy, and then the energy keeps going up.
Right. Right. So if you're sensitive and you're feeling it, all the feels right now, you are not alone. We totally get how you're feeling. And I think this is why our topic today around like Downy and bounce and the pineal gland, and we'll talk about some other things that impact the pineal as well. But I think it's such a great topic because one of the reasons that you become more attuned to the energy is thanks to the pineal gland and a decalcification occurring. So I'll let you take it away a bit around, the pineal gland and what it does. And then we can kind of go back and forth on our experiences, maybe with this decalcification, because I feel like we both had a journey with that, right?
Yeah. And I feel like it's a process where we have to kind of maintain decalcification, because I think it's actually, there's a lot of contributing factors to calcification of the pineal gland. So that calcification is like, it's actual little calcium crystal deposits on the outside, and it sort of creates a shell or a hardening around the pineal gland, which causes it to be less effective. So I want to tell you a little bit about what this special gland is. You might already know, but just kind of go over and remind you of how incredibly magical you are as a human being. So you have this gland right in the middle of your head, like literally between the two hemispheres. And in fact, when they do those medical books where they're showing like the diet, how do they call it? When you cut something in half and you show the side view.
I don't know the name, but I know what you're talking about.
Dissection or bisecting the brain. And you see it. So, the eye of Horus that you see all the time, like the Egyptian eye with a little swirly coming down, that's actually the pineal gland, is that if you see it from a side view like that. So that was like the Egyptian sort of hinting at how important this little gland is. But what's really cool about it is your pineal gland is literally a third eye. Okay. It has rods and cones in it that connect to the visual cortex of the brain, just like the eyes do. So rods and cones in your eyes help to sense light and color, right? It helps you identify shapes. You have that inside your pineal gland, which is also filled with water and floating crystals, little tiny crystals that when they get compressed, they give off sparks of light. They're called piezoelectric and piezoluminescence is the terms for these crystals. But that's what allows us to see, when we're visualizing something, when we're remembering something, these little crystals are getting compressed and going off and like shooting up little pictures inside your mind, helping you to visualize it. But it also activates when clairvoyance activates, which is your ability to sort of see something that's not there at all, right? You get these charges that go through. So these crystals are floating around, and the pineal gland is very light sensitive. So think about what they're doing. If they're covering it, if it's getting covered in this hard calcium shell, calcium being opaque, it's literally blocking light from getting to the pineal gland.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some of its functions, but other than the functions of the ability to connect you to higher realms, and visualize, which are very important, features of the pineal gland, they also regulate the hormones of melatonin, which is your sleep hormones, and serotonin, which gets released during the day that gives you energy.
It
so
makes you feel good. It's a
that's
feel
right.
good hormone.
Feel good hormone. So those are the two hormone functions that I know of that are connected to the pineal gland. And now I want to, hand it over to Amber, because we already know some ways that they actually try to block the pineal gland. It's pretty well known, at least within the light worker community, that fluoride is a major contributor to calcification all over the body, but also the pineal gland. Yeah. But Amber was sharing with me, you were telling me about these laundry products that I used to use. I haven't used them for years, but when you started telling me about it, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, share with us here.
And that's that series of the pineal decalcifying. For me, the first phase was food and cleaning up the way that I ate, because refined sugar, lots of caffeine, MSG, aspartame, all calcify the pineal gland. And then I started with the toxic cleanup of products, because our toxic skincare, body care, hair care, we looked into some of that last week in episode 4. Make sure you go check that out if you haven't. But 2 of the key products that a lot of us are using in our laundry, for our towels, our bed sheets, our blankets, and our clothes, are these Downy fabric softeners and bounce dryer sheets and things like that. And I'm going to screen share here because I want to show you. We're going to our favorite website again, ewg.org, because again, part of, not only are these toxic for the body, but they calcify the pineal gland. And I think part of that is due to some of the ingredients. And so first, if we look at this product, I pulled up, most of them are rated D's, F's, and there's a few that are a C, but not good scores. And of course, there's fragrance, there's dimethyl siloxanes, things I don't even know how to pronounce. These just don't look like they should be in anything for a human being. And then we see, obviously, these irritate skin, allergies, right? They actually cause aquatic toxicity, so to the water, right? Respiratory effects. I did read somewhere as well that I do believe, especially with the dryer sheets, and I'll go to that after, that it actually, it's like the emission that it emits is so toxic, it shouldn't be put into the air. I know the deal with climate change and all this stuff about cows farting and vehicle emissions is just BS, right? It's part of their agenda as they're all flying around on their private jets, come on. But this to me is concerning, that this kind of stuff is being emitted into the air, because we talked about last week, even just a fragrance from a Dove soap sat in the bathroom smelling for a week after, right, my guests left, let alone this being emitted into the air. Think about how many people use this in their dryer. But skin irritations, allergies, respiratory impacts, water toxicity, damage to vision, this is concerning, right? So you think of what this is doing to your health, and then you think of, okay, well, what is it doing to my pineal gland? So that's the fabric softener, Downy. And my personal analogy, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like they actually named it Downy because it downs your frequency. It dumbs you down. Right. Because they always do the plan where it's called a library. Well, lies, right? So that's my analogy as to why they named it Downy. I think it's because it downs your frequency because of the way it's impacting your pineal gland. And then we have the good old bounce sheets, right? Which it doesn't matter what brand you're using. They all come from the same place. And we see the asthma and respiratory is a huge, right? It just, no wonder people get plugged up and have lung issues and are hacking and coughing all the time, because they're absorbing all this into the body. And it impacts the immune system, the nervous system, right? Hormone disruptor, endocrine disruptors are hormone disruptors. So we start to just see you know, how these products are impacting our health and well-being. And from a, like a calcified pineal gland standpoint, like all this toxicity just builds up in the body. And of course, part of it targets the pineal. It's funny that you talked about the calcifications, because when I had to get my appendix out because it kept flaring up. I kept getting appendicitis attacks, and I'd get horribly bloated, and I'd get nauseous, and I'd start getting sick, and it was really bad. And so there's quite a few times where I had to go to the hospital. They'd ultrasound my appendix and go, oh, we're going to monitor you, and if it calms down, like, we won't take it out. And then the final time I went, they're like, oh my gosh, like, no, we need to take this out before it ruptures and it poisons you. Right. And obviously I'm a huge fan of not having to get stuff taken out if you don't need to, but I didn't have a choice, and it was causing me a lot of grief. And when they did the autopsy on it afterward, and I had my follow-up, he said that my appendix was full of calcifications.
Wow.
And I had my appendix out after I healed binge eating, but I was still using the Downy and all the stuff. So I'm sensing that there was probably this accumulation from the self-sabotage and the toxic products, that, because I'm like, how would all these calcifications get into my appendix otherwise? You know what I mean? So that I would just share that, because I found that really interesting. Then once I learned about all of this, and then once we cleaned up our toxicity and all of our products and the laundry, it's like, boom, I just started to see the world in a completely different way. Hence the wake up, right? Because one of the things that, happens when you start to decalcify your pineal is you now can discern, and you can't be deceived when your pineal decalcifies.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, everything just starts to make sense. Like, you start connecting the dots more. You see how things work together. You start having stronger critical thinking skills come in as you do this. Absolutely. You know, and as you were talking about it, I was thinking, like, why laundry detergent? I mean, what I kind of assumed, and what we kind of find to be true, is it's in everything.
Yes.
Kind of in everything.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, right? Like, you're sleeping in your sheets and your blankets for at least 6 to 8+ hours a night, absorbing all of it. And you're naked, or you're in thin pajamas, your underwear. You're wearing your clothes otherwise the rest of the day and night. Like, you're literally, and then you shower, like we talked about last week, your pores are fully open, and then you're using this downy laden towel to towel yourself off and absorbing all that even more. So you're literally having 24/7 contact.
Well, as you say that, I'm thinking about the aquatic toxicity they were talking about, because if it's on the towel and then you've got water on your body and it's going into the water, it's creating that water toxicity, which is also being absorbed into your skin. So yes, it's harming the water in our environment, probably the most when it's being used to wash with, or washed out actually, but it's also getting on your skin and going into your skin. So it's like creating layer after layer of this effect. You know, and I just want to clarify that our intention when we share all of this with you is not to frighten you. It's not to scare you. It's to inform you so that you can go, let me look into that myself. And if that's resonant for me, you can start making choices that help you feel better, because you might be doing so many things for yourself that are helping you and still feeling like, I can't get out from under whatever this is. And it isn't until you look at things that you wouldn't naturally associate with your body, like laundry, dryer sheets. You don't really think, like, that's not on my body. I use it to, you know, de-static my clothes or make them smell good when they come out, or whatever reason you'd use it. You're not thinking that's going on my body or affecting my internal organs until you hear conversations like this, when you're like, crap, it actually is.
Yeah. And you don't realize while you're using it how potent the fragrance is until you stop, and then you have company. And it's not a judgment, but you just notice, like, when we have company over, right, that are using it, and it's innocent, that's fine. It's not like we're going to say anything, but then your nose starts to burn and your throat starts to get sore. And then the chair smells like it for a week after. Right. And it's like, and then you have to go and stay somewhere, and then you all of a sudden can't breathe, and everything's burning, and your skin's burning, and you're like, holy moly, this really has an impact.
Yeah, I remember I used to love the way the dryer exhaust would smell as a kid coming out. You'd be like playing outside and you'd smell that. And again, they're playing with the what is it, the hippocampus that smell
the
lives in?
pleasure center.
They're playing with that center of your brain. And so it's so, and they know that. That's why they've laden it with fragrance, because the more intoxicating the fragrance, the more it sticks with you. So it's like, if I'm outside on a summer evening and I smell someone's dryer sheet as I'm walking by, I'm like, like there's just something that happens. But when you start getting this stuff out of your system, when you're not using it anymore, and then you are in an environment where someone is using it. I know, like my mom, she still loves the really fragrancy stuff. And whenever my kids spend the night and they come home and she's washed their clothes, I'm always like I open the bag and I'm like, whoa, it is so strong. And of course, I know for her, like that's not happening. She's not having that impacted smell effect that you get when you can get away from it. So it's really interesting how we become even like desensitized. And that's what it is, because like with sugar, right? Yeah. If you consume a lot of sugar, you get desensitized to the sweetness of sugar, which is why you can eat like high fructose corn syrup items and maybe your teeth ache a little. Maybe the roof of your mouth starts to get irritated, but you're not like, oh, I can't eat this. Yeah. But if you take that out of your diet for a week or a month or, a year, and you go bite into like a Snickers bar, you're suddenly like, ooh, it's too much. I got a thumbs up from Zoom for that. But you're like, this is disgusting. Like, I can't understand how I could ever eat this. It's so intense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with the fragrance. You need to spray more on. You put more dryer sheets in the dryer, right? Because your sense of smell is getting numbed out. And then once you clear the stuff out, you resensitize, and then that's why you really, really notice it. Right. Totally. And it's a process. And again, it's just a learning education opportunity here. But you really do feel a lot better. I feel brain fogged after being exposed to that now. So I can just imagine, right? Like using all of that, plus all the toxic skincare, plus eating all the sugar, etc. And like just being in this fog and not even being aware of it. So
totally.
We've all been there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where, again, it's like the cleaner you start to live, the more you find, like you still find that at the end of the day, it's still recommended. I know Amber recommends it to me all the time, but it's still recommended to do like gentle detoxing to help your body move this stuff out. Because even if it's not in your immediate environment, as soon as you get out of your immediate environment, you're in it. Like I said, I'm walking down the street, I'm going for a walk, and my neighbor's doing their laundry. Cool thing to do, right? But I'm getting blasted with this. I'm like, whoa. So you can't guarantee that you're not going to come in contact with this. And I certainly don't want to live my life in a sense where I'm afraid to go anywhere because of the potential toxic impact. I don't think we can avoid it anymore.
No. And I think part of it is to learn how to take care of ourselves the best means that we have available, and then to trust that our vibration, right, as the vibration raises on the planet and our vibration raises, like our body can process through some of it. And that's why you toss your piece of lemon in your water, you drink yourself a dandelion tea, right? Do a bit of dry skin brushing and get your lymphatic drainage open. Like it's honestly small little things that we can do that will make the big difference and help us move through this toxicity. And really, and I agree, I think we need to detach the fear from it and go, like, if I have been put in circumstances where it's there, like, I trust my body, I'll do my part, I'll be fine. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There is definitely a power with intention.
Yes.
That can, no toxic sludge can overcome your intention of, protection and elimination and purification, if that's what you intend for yourself. So I would never give my power away to a product like Downy or Bounce and be like, if this touches my skin, I'm doomed. I wouldn't put that out there.
Totally.
But I also don't want it. No. It's like, because we want to also look at, the question is, why would they introduce so many toxins that would have a negative effect on the body? Yeah. Why? And we have to look and see, if we were to take time to follow the money and find out who owns Downy and Bounce, and Amber, you're saying it's most likely the same group or same company.
Yeah.
So as you go higher up, you find out who owns it. you find out who owns that company. Many times it's something like Vanguard or BlackRock, who own like everything, and they're just continuing to own everything. But you also find that they have other companies, right? That they're connected through this chain of the money. It's like, who's ultimately owning this? Oh, well, this also happens to own this piece of big pharma. And look, they're making melatonin supplements or serotonin support, right? I mean, most antidepressants are supposed to increase serotonin, correct? And how many people are on antidepressants?
Yeah.
Right. And our own brain is meant to produce this chemical just by being exposed to light, just by the sunlight being on you. You're supposed to produce this. So if we're having malfunctions in producing these natural chemicals in our body because of a thick shield of calcification, and then we're going to need help producing those chemicals. And look who just happens to be there, ready to help you out.
Yep, exactly. And just like the endocrine disruption factor, think of how many women get breast cancer and estrogen dominating inducing cancers this is one of the contributors.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very connected, and it can get frustrating, to be honest, because you're like, oh my gosh, like when you do connect the dots and you see the core of the agendas, it is. And that's why one of the best things we can do is vote with our dollars and slowly start cleaning things up, because then they don't get their money. They don't get their life source, right? When we're not buying the Downy, we're not buying the fabric softener, we're, putting essential oils in with a wool dryer ball. And okay, it's still a bit staticky, but I'd rather some static than the latter, right?
Yeah. And I find that, I stopped even doing that step. I found that I wasn't having as big of a problem. It's almost like they're making this be a problem when sometimes it's just certain fabrics that create that cling, and not all fabrics created.
Yeah.
And so you realize, like, it's interesting how our consumer brain works, because, like I said, it's emotional manipulation when it's sold to you. If you were to stop watching TV and stop seeing the problem, because, right, that's how marketing works. They present the problem so they can introduce the solution. And here's a problem that's like, it's not really a problem, but how do they sell this product? How do they convince you otherwise that you need it? Now what they're introducing more and more is the smell. Oh, you need help with the smell. Now they have like additives that are just pure scent, or, they're scent with something else, but to enhance the scent, to increase it even more.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's connected to that dopamine hit. It's all, and here's the sad thing. And I think the thing that we don't fully maybe know the implications of yet is what is happening to us when we're being overdosed with dopamine hits from, social media, from food, from the additives in food, from all this fragrance being added to everything constantly. I don't know if you've seen this ad. There's a company, and I don't even know if they're a clean company or not. I just get hit with their ads constantly. It's for this thing called laundry sauce, and they're like little like a Tide Pod type thing you would put in. But their whole selling point is how it's the most amazing smelling laundry. It smells so good, and it's in your wash cycle. So by the time it comes out of your wash cycle and it goes into your dryer, it still smells so good. And that's their whole selling point. And it's like, geez, we're constantly being inundated with this. And I think, our sense of smell, we could probably dig into this in another episode, but our sense of smell is meant to help us detect toxicity in our environment. When a woman becomes pregnant, her sense of smell increases, so she can even smell food and tell if it's gone off. Like, that's how sensitive our nose can be. So what is happening when we're being bombarded with constant, intense fragrances that are giving us a dopamine hit, creating all this pleasure? But I guess back to my original point is, what's the outcome to a human being who's being dosed with dopamine all the time? Like, what are the end results of that?
Yeah.
Because one of the things they're learning about with porn, for example, and men, is that gives men a dopamine hit, or people who watch porn, it's giving them a dopamine hit, right? Constantly. But the brain has to create new receptors because the ones that are being used are overstimulated. Now you need to create more.
Yeah.
But the long-term effects are showing like it's actually causing erectile dysfunction in men.
Yeah.
Prolonged use to that, prolonged dopamine. It's like they can't even function in a normal way anymore. So the reason I bring that up is because what is this doing to us in the long term, having so much dopamine stimulated in the body? Maybe Amber, do you have any idea of what that would lead to?
Well, I feel like it fuels addiction of all kinds, whether it's like adding more fragrance, eating more sugar, needing to watch, right? Like to me, that's what it comes to, is we have such a high and then we drop really low. So low moods, depression, depressed like states, you almost go through withdrawals. So I feel like it's such an extreme, trouble sleeping, impacting your nervous system. So definitely things like that. But I feel like it would fuel us to want to get into even more addictive like behaviors, to try and chase an even bigger dopamine high. So this is why it's so important for us to start to understand like these connections, like what we're talking about today, and the pineal gland, and just how all these things have disrupted us, because it's all fueling just this disconnect with ourselves and being out of touch with our bodies and chasing all these external highs and rewards and hits.
As you're saying that, I'm kind of wondering to myself, I wonder if this is contributing to the emotional oversensitivity that we're seeing.
Yeah, I would say
definitely. In society, this extreme emotional, extreme emotions, rather than being able to stay like grounded or calm. It's like overexcitement, overstimulation, over angered,
Yeah, and people's nervous systems are overwhelmed and overburdened, and their like liver is the seat of anger. And if you have all this chemical toxicity going through your body and it's overwhelmed, that's going to give you a shorter fuse more easily as well, right? So I agree. I think it's very connected to all of that. Should we talk about some ways that you can decalcify your pineal gland, and then we'll get into some cards?
Totally. Let's do that.
Okay, so a few things that I always love to recommend. One of my favorites is essential oils, because I feel like most people love them, and they're easily accessible. So peppermint, sage, clove, and myrrh all help with decalcification of the pineal, and actually also help to stimulate the third eye. And then of course, when we look at foods, and only add in what you like, don't ever force yourself to eat anything you don't like. But things like seaweed, chlorophyll, anything green, your green veggies and fruits, because they have chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is like the scrub brush that cleans up the calcification. It's also great for the liver. Beets, garlic, which is one of my favorites, chaga mushrooms, apple cider vinegar, and raw cacao, which is also a favorite. Like, who doesn't love good dark chocolate? And cacao is the real unprocessed chocolate. So adding them into your food where palatable. To me, I love a good smoothie. You can easily toss your chlorella, your spirulina, your greens and things like that in there, or you could make a nice big salad and do something like that as well. I put apple cider vinegar in my salad dressings, and I find that to be really easy as well. And then of course, like I said, the dark chocolate is super easy. Some spices like thyme, parsley, turmeric, also great for this as well. So you could add that into your cooking. And then of course, I think another thing that's really important is getting a good water filter. Because even if they say there's no fluoride in their water, it's such a lie. Like, I notice I get brain fog if I drink water that has chlorophyll, fluoride, and it hits instantly. It's hitting instantly. So that's how I know. And even check the bottled water, it'll say fluoride 0.5 parts per million or whatever too. So Santevia, Berkey, right? Get some, just even if you get the one where you fill the jug up. But I really like Santevia. It has a 6-tier filter, and you only have to replace the filters once every 6 months. So it's very good. You can refill it as much as you want. But those are just some things that I would suggest help decalcify the pineal, as well as, your self-care routine. Get out into nature, get some sun, breath work, meditation, and yoga. So that's my end. What do you have to suggest?
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce some of those. Sunlight is one of the best ways you can help decalcify the pineal gland, because it naturally will stimulate it. So even if there is a calcified shell over it, if you were to hold a piece of eggshell up to light, you would be able to sense light through it. You're just not getting as much.
Right.
But by really getting that sunlight, and and making sure this area is exposed, you are going to help to break down the calcification and strengthen the abilities of the pineal gland to produce. As soon as it senses the light, it starts producing serotonin, which is a great thing. So you'll feel better too. That's why when we sit in the sun and we close our eyes and we just kind of bask in it, we feel so good because we're getting that serotonin released. Another thing, I know Amber will back me up on this one, is reducing light confusion, which is so important. And our devices, they're creating, all these lights around me right now. They're just like definitely confusing the third eye and being like, okay, we're awake, we're ready to go. So one of the things I was taught was that you want to actually sort of follow the sun, right? So as the sun goes down, your light in your home should get dimmer, like more ambient. And then of course, as you're going to bed, reducing all of that blue light, putting, turning lights down, getting electronics out of the bedroom, because I used to sleep with my phone right next to my head, like on my side table. And even that is like, it's sending its radiation out towards you. It's also, the more sensitive you get, the more crackly you kind of feel that electrical energy. So reducing any of that false light helps to regulate the pineal gland, and it's going to help it make the melatonin it needs to make. I mean, one of the things about, I'm so guilty of like liking to watch things before I fall asleep, but I wear blue light blocking glasses. I put the yellow filter on the phone, and I, even doing all that, it really, the best way to do it is to like actually have darkness so that the melatonin can start producing. But I wanted to share with you a few quick exercises you could do, and you can do this anywhere. That would actually help to stimulate the pineal gland. And the first one is super easy. It's just, you're going to tap on your pineal gland spot. So what you want to do is you kind of feel the forehead, and you're looking for that kind of dip.
Oh yeah, there it is.
The dip. And you would just gently tap on it. And, the longer you tap, like if you were to tap for a full minute, you'd actually start to feel activity starting up. So you're actually creating activity right there. Another way to stimulate it that's less obvious, and you can do in the middle of a meeting, you can do it if you are taking, transit, is the roof of your mouth. So if you feel with your tongue, the roof of your mouth, you're going to feel like a knot somewhere in your upper palate. You want to put your tongue behind that knot. So I'm kind of smiling, and you want to wiggle your tongue back and forth on the soft part of the palate. It's going to might make you sneeze. It might feel ticklish. But as you do that, that line goes straight up to that pineal gland and helps to stimulate it. So if you're about to meditate, let's say you want to make connection with your guides or your higher self, or want to activate sort of a more mystical experience during meditation, doing the tapping or the roof of the mouth, massaging for, you want to try and go for a minute with these, and you'll really start to feel it. But as you do that, you're also sort of vibrating the pineal gland, which is going to help break down the calcification that might be happening right there.
I love those. And those are easy, simple little tricks. Thank you for sharing those. So we have a couple of questions to ask the cards.
Yes.
So the first question is, what percentage of humanity's pineal glands are open now, and when are we going to hit critical mass?
Okay, so we're gonna have to break that down into two parts. And what we're looking for right now is we're looking for cards that will give us an idea of number movement. So we're looking for numbers, like low end numbers, like, between 1 and 3 would be early stages. 4 to about 6 is about middle stages, and 7 to 9, or, up to 10. These are like the end stages, meaning like we've hit mass. So if we're looking at 50% or more, we're looking at cards or around card 5 would be the 50%, and 10 would be 100. So if we get minor arcana, that's what we're looking for. And if we're getting court cards, we're looking for, the progression. Like if it's a page, that's early stages. If it's a king, it's culminating. And then if we get major arcana, well, that's a whole nother message. So,
and if anyone, as you're watching live, has questions you want to ask the cards, leave them in the comments, in the chat. And of course, if you are watching the replay and you have any questions or topics you want to see in the future, please leave them and be sure to subscribe, like, and share this with those that you think could benefit, because we want, what do we have?
What? Wow. 90%.
Oh, wow.
You wouldn't think so, but it is. So this is the 9 of Cups. It's the happiness card.
Wow.
It's one of the like most positive cards in the minor arcana. So we're actually more open. And as I'm asking my team, like what, because that's not what I thought we would get. I thought we would get like maybe 50 if we're lucky.
Totally.
So they're saying like at the higher end, 10 would be everybody awake, 90%. And what they're saying is it has a lot to do with the energies that are coming in now. The sun's energy is increasing. So when you heard us starting this conversation about ascension symptoms, that's because we're getting dosed hard with photonic light from the sun. It's emitting so many CMEs, so many like solar flares, and solar energy is coming off of the sun and hitting us hard. We just had a major wave. So light, remember how we were saying sunlight has an effect on the pineal gland? Well, photons are just pure light, and they're being absorbed, and of course they're not visible to the naked eye, so we don't realize that even at night when some of these things are hitting hard, we're getting hit with photonic energy. So we are actually more awake in this process than I think we've ever been.
Amazing.
And it's funny because it's like, in spite of the chemicals we've been talking about, in spite of, it's still having this really powerful effect that can't be countered. Now, the reason why you can't. So when I say that, I don't want you to go, okay, well, I don't have to worry about this. Cause you don't, your pineal gland is doing better than it was maybe 10 years ago. Sure. But here's the thing, the ascension symptoms that we're talking about, that's not coming from the sun. That comes from the reaction our body has from holding toxicity or lower frequency. And that has to come out. And as it comes out, we have these detox symptoms that can be very uncomfortable and very painful sometimes.
Which we'll do a whole episode on. I feel like maybe next week we should talk about ascension symptoms, the light coming down. Yeah.
So one of the things you can do to help ease that is and you're naturally, as you get this light upgrades, people are naturally kind of walking away from this stuff slowly. They're like, they're looking at their diets, they're looking at what they're consuming, they're making changes. We're seeing it in the marketplace. So if we're seeing it in the marketplace, we know it's happening. The thing is that if we eliminate these things from our system, we actually make this a much smoother process for ourselves, where, these symptoms for some people can take you out. It can literally like put you in bed for a day feeling really sick because it's such a heavy detox. So by eliminating extra toxins in your environment, and therefore extra toxins in your body, you are reducing the discomfort you'd have to experience as you're upgrading.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Okay. That's amazing. What a great response. So second question. I know, right? That's so nice and refreshing and uplifting. Yay, go us. And thank you, sun and ascension light. Second question. Will we in our lifetime see things like Downy and Bounce and these toxic products be exposed and eliminated?
Okay. Well, they're taking their time on this one.
That's okay. It means it's going to be a good answer.
Oh, okay. A couple want to come out. Okay. So part of it, part of that is the whole thing is the illusion. As the illusion shatters, we're going to see things very differently. Part of it is the belief. And this is an interesting one. Some of us we're going to have to do some work around this, deconstructing the thought forms that help create the toxicity. So it's not just toxic on that physical level, like let's get the toxins out of the environment and everything's well. It's also the thought forms that go with it. There's actually, now this is going to sound woo-woo for some of you, there is negative entity attachments to these toxic lower vibration things.
Which makes sense because you're putting them, you're consuming them, it's lowering your vibration, it compromises your energy field, it's making small tears and holes, and it makes you more susceptible to that kind of energy, right?
Yeah.
Different than drinking alcohol and it doing the same kind of thing, right?
So I always joke about, and this might be for my generation, maybe anybody who's seen the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie from the 80s, there's the big scene at the end is when she realizes, like, this whole thing, you have no power over me, is the statement she makes, and it shatters the illusion. So part of it is us claiming, again, sovereignty back from so many things, because one of the things that happens to us as we discover how dark agendas were kind of everywhere, they're like a huge spider web, right? And they've touched everything, is it's easy to feel overwhelmed by it. And it's easy to feel like it's so much bigger than me. And, and even like maybe anger to fearful, like, oh my God, I can't get out of this. And it's all an illusion. It's all by consent. It was designed with your consent. They had to figure out how to kind of manipulate it out of you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it only works if you consent. As soon as you say you don't, this happens. So this is like, this shows, this is the Knight of Wands in the reverse position, and events that it shows is a disruption of employment. Since we were asking about these companies, they do get disrupted. Something doesn't work the way they intended it to work. And part of that is, again, us getting over, this is the major point. So whenever major arcana shows up, this is the most important point. The fear that's attached to it is why it stays here, right? So why is it that people can get rid of the product, but still have an experience of it? How come I'm not immune to it? And it's because of that. It's the negative entity thought forms that we allow to have power. Like, how dare these companies use us like that? That feeling of being used, that's a feeling of victimization. And that victimization creates that sense of weakness or powerlessness, right?
Right.
So the last card that comes up right behind that disruption of business is the Four of Cups in the reverse position, which shows actually an evolution happens. So business gets disrupted. I mean, it is very much like what we're seeing in the world when it comes to, it's almost like I hate using this term because it's not how I would do things, but it's like a cancel culture. As soon as you're like, I'm not using that anymore, it's not going to be a part of my life, I'm not going to support it financially, they have to change because, again, these businesses, more than control, want the money. How do you stay in control if you can't fund your own campaign,
Yeah.
So, but as we say, I want it to evolve, and the call is strong, it will evolve.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Right on point, those responses, I feel like. So yeah, I feel like this is so empowering. We now have more awareness about the pineal gland, things that are impacting it, ways we can decalcify, some simple exercises you can do. We've got great guidance from the universe. What more could you ask for? Right? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and remember, as you look at these things, we're looking at it from a place of empowerment and making better choices.
Yes.
So sometimes in order to do that, we have to look at, why do I want to make a better choice? And our job today is simply to show you why you might want to make a better choice, and let you know that none of this has a permanent effect, that your sense of intention and your sense of power is stronger than any kind of system that's been put in place to suppress you. It only worked because on some level we consented to it. And as soon as we stop consenting to these things in whatever way feels natural and organic to you, you actually help break this whole system apart.
Which everyone counts, everyone matters. We all are playing our part, and it's huge. So I feel like this is so good. We're at 44 minutes. What a good number, right?
Hi, team.
Right. And is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up today's live?
If you want to hear from me, you can go to blythestarlight.com. You can book a reading. I have a lot of other things you can check out. If you want weekly energy reports. I do that every week on my YouTube channel,
Yes.
which is at Blythe Starlight as well.
And we make sure every week, all those details are in the description below too. So you can easily click over and access all of your lovely content. I love the karma cards. You have to go and subscribe and check them out. They're so uplifting and reassuring and informative. So thank you for
absolutely.
all
And
that you
Amber,
do.
aren't you doing something? Isn't there a masterclass coming up?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I wasn't even going to mention it, but yeah. So one of the ways that you can also decalcify your pineal gland is healing your relationship with food. And so I'm hosting a 3-day masterclass, May 15th, 16th, 17th, and it's triggers, understanding the roots of your binge and emotional eating triggers.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. So we're going to go into all of the emotional triggers. Like there's multiple triggers you might be experiencing. And then one of the reasons we get blocked from healing our relationship with food is because we lack awareness of our triggers and what the roots of the behavior are. So physical triggers, emotional triggers, energetic triggers. And we're going to go into diet mentalities and the all or nothing mentality and how that fuels emotional eating as well. So I'm going to put a link below in the description if you want to come and sign up. We're on early bird pricing for $55 USD, and you do get lifetime access to those. If you want to come and join us, it's going to be super fun. So I'll make sure those details are below. And of course, if you want to go deeper with healing your relationship with food, balancing your hormones, gut health, etc., you can also click below to go to the website or book a consultation to further connect. So it has been an absolute pleasure as always. We hope you were enjoying these. Wednesday is kind of going to be our jam moving forward in case like we're not available, but they're weekly Wednesdays, 3:30 Mountain, 5 Eastern. So come and join us live. Come engage in the conversation, like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what you want us to share more of. We're so excited to dig deeper. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. So next week, Ascension, we're going to talk about it.
Yes, I'm so excited. See you next week, guys.
Bye.